So we have another take here again, but I think this time it's a whimper of defeat. Basically, is an article from San Francisco Gate, super progressive author, supposedly a comedian too. I don't, nothing in this column is funny, but definitely you could see that they're just at this point, the left is demoralized, and they understand they can't cancel Joe Rogan. He's uncancelable. The what perplexes me is even the reason, like, why would they even bother trying to cancel him? But again, if you're like a leftist, it's like a pebble in your shoe that's like grinding on you, grinding on you. It's like at first, it's like it's Donald Trump, or now it's Joe Rogan. So it's like it's somebody that's like spreading misinformation or just getting on their nerves. And the list of Joe Rogan's crimes seems such a tiny, minor infractions, but I think if you possibly think of the deeper reason, it's not because of the couple times I used the N word to describe a comedy special or whatever, the COVID misinformation. I think they're just excuses. The real problem is that he's really popular, and he might be introducing people to dangerous ideas like Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro, even though those people are really run of the mill, just vanilla politically. I mean, so but that just they can't stand it. So they're trying to find any way, any kind of excuse, from COVID misinformation to the dropping the N word as if he was such a racist. Um, but they're resorting themselves to understand that Joe Rogan is uncancelable, and they will just kind of have to live with him or people like him. Which is, even if Joe Rogan was to be kicked off Spotify, he'll be back on all the platforms, and his reach would even grow. Now, but see, I still want to get in to read this article and check out the whimpering. See their sad jumbo tears over the lack of responsibility or capitalism or whatever. So it's an article by Drew Mangray. The I won't bore you. The first couple paragraphs, I don't even like, starts off with like about that he started listening to MP3s and burning CDs and stuff like that before Spotify, which is completely irrelevant here. Um, but here's where it starts. If you're not familiar with Joe Rogan work by now, you've done a pretty good job of hiding under a rock. Rogan started off as a stand-up comedian, actor, then hosted The Fear Factor on NBC, then became the main color guy for UFC, which is what type of audience is he writing for? Like, you don't know, like, what's the age demographic here? You don't know Joe Rogan, you don't know what Spotify is. You have to spend so much of the article just to get people up to speed to that. So obviously, anything this guy says, they're going to agree with, because they're completely, they have no basis in reality. Like, they don't know anything. Here we go. So now arguably the biggest podcaster in America, undeserving heir to Howard Stern shock jock crown. And this is where it like the very first fallacy starts off. The cool thing about Joe Rogan is that he never wanted to be a shock jock like Howard Stern. Howard Stern had like strippers and porn stars and just whatever, just like some people like that type of stuff, but Joe Rogan was actually interested in like the universe and science and whatever, even though they had a lot of conspiracy theories. It's whatever, he's just an interested guy. It's a completely different format. Joe Rogan didn't say stuff to try to get popular by, saying something shocky like a shock jock. As such, he's right alongside with Bill Maher, Adam Carolla, Madison Cawthorn, I don't even know who that is. People who trend on a weekly, even daily basis, either saying something awful or defending someone who did. Just like seeing Rogan's name. But that's the thing. That's not Rogan's MO. That's not what he's trying to do. And you can clearly see he's not trying to do that. You can clearly see that Rogan is just wants to have a fun, interesting conversation about interesting topics. Whatever he feels is interesting anyway. He's not trying to court controversy or saying something knowing that it's going to stir people up. That's completely, and then that you just are implying that to your old boomer audience or whatever's reading your articles here. Just seeing Rogan's name on your computer screen is enough to make you sigh audibly and then click, then hate yourself for clicking. He's unavoidable. Spotify would prefer to continue to be so. It talks about the $100 million deal. So when Joe Rogan says the N-word at least 24 times on his podcast, or tells his audience that young and healthy Americans don't need to get vaccinated, oh, the list of crimes, oh no. Oh, when he's threatening his own, treating his own COVID with ivermectin, oh no, that's the biggest crime of all. Those three things all happened. No, he's merely doing what Spotify paid him to do. No, you idiot. That's just his opinion, and he would have done those things. He would have done those things if he wasn't even on Spotify. Well, even the N-word stuff, that was before he was on Spotify. I'm sure that he would have had the same COVID ideas or positions regardless of Spotify. If Spotify actually probably moderated him, probably moderated a lot of his conspiracy theory episodes, even though he still has Alex Jones on every now and again. The shameless is the business plan. No, that's never the business plan. Stop gaslighting or strawmanning or... In response, hero Neil Young pulled his music from the service, followed quickly by Jody Mitchell, blah, blah, blah. Everybody already knows this. And then it has a quote about the CEO, Daniel Ek, condemning what Joe Rogan, quote unquote, said. But the answer is not to silence him. And it will continue. This scandal is nothing to Spotify because we know how lucrative doing business this way can be. They're following in the wake of Facebook, Twitter, and to less degree Substack. Companies that control nearly everything you see, but declare themselves just a platform to avoid responsibility for any of the content they host. Jon Stewart, who recently emerged from hiding to remind you that his notions of liberalism are now hopelessly out of date, came close this week when he defended Rogan on his own podcast earlier this week. Quote, misinformation will always be out there, but if the algorithm drives people further and further down the rabbit hole, the algorithm is the amplifier and catalyst of extremism, end quote. All right. There are too many words to say Spotify is the problem, but the point is somewhere. Stewart, like Rogan, thinks that this is a problem that can be solved through engaging with your enemies. The feudal notion of civility rearing its head once again. But you're sitting on top of an airplane hangar full of money. You don't have to engage. But what kind of engagement does he want? He wants Spotify to completely take Joe Rogan because then the Neil Young protest would work, and then you cave to the mob. So they would have to take. I mean, I wouldn't care what Spotify could take all their podcasts. Nobody listens to podcasts on Spotify anyway. But so anybody else got? What about Christian conservatives that got offended by drill rap music? You know, it's like, is Spotify going to start caving everywhere and start pulling all their content? You're just emboldening idiots like this. You can say, we're listening, not listening, keep making their money. Spotify's stock there in the U.S. is down a whopping 50% since this time last year, but they also posted nearly 25% revenue gain, making the tantalizing buy. Low prospect for investors of all kinds. All right. Apple, that's because there's a gross imbalance of these ideological fights that's always been here in America, but it's further exacerbated where the money gets out of hand and when supposedly agnostic platforms discover they can attract the sizable, in the case of Rogan's podcast, a terrifyingly loyal audience simply by letting horrible people say whatever they want. Yeah, that's the horrible people. That's in your eyes, but a lot of people don't share your judgment. So Neil Young, as reserved as he is, knows he has little juice he has in this particular fight, which he called on Spotify employees to resign in protest. Oh, here it goes. Here's a capitulation. If this person actually, he's just complaining here, but as the leftists always do, but where's, but even he, after writing this complaining ass article, he won't cancel his Spotify. For my part, I still have my Spotify plan. I still open up the app every day and listen to all my favorite dad rock. I've been on a real kick trip lately. I don't care. I thought it was real hard about switching over to Bandcamp, which play artists much or fair royalty, but couldn't be bothered. And here we go. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, listen, like, watch the people's actual actions as opposed to what they say. All this complaining, it's just you're just going on and on because you're virtue signaling. You're showing to your audience and to other writers at SF how what a aligned lefty you are, but at the end of the day, a lot of these people admit that it's all just talk, it's all just noise. They can't even switch their music app to cancel Rogan at the end of the day. Says Spotify's app is clunky, but I know these clunks intimately, and I fear new clunks. I'm too tired to resist. And what fatigue is the end goal of all these companies? I haven't left Spotify, which probably means I never will. Yeah, welcome to America, okay? Like, do you know how many corporations like Disney or whatever have political views and advocate for critical race theory or all sorts of awful leftism that I despise? But if I was to keep track of all that shit, I would just not be able to have almost anything. Like, if I do I want to read the materials from Visa about their diversity and inclusion and like white privilege and whatever? You know, it's like all of it's, yes, you live in the hyper politicized world that a lot of people, you know, have nasty, deplorable political opinions, but maybe the left can get used to it just like the right has.